I believe by now, most of us know him very well. And there are two sides to every person. There is one side where they have a list of credentials. And let me tell you one thing, there's no shortage of people in the world of Toastmasters with an endless list of credentials. Uh, this many DTMs, they won this contest, that contest. And sometimes when you meet such people, you begin to wonder that uh, what were all those awards about? Not because they come across as not competent or not good at what they are supposed to do, but they come across as less than desirable human beings. And that is a very antithesis of what Toastmasters teaches us. I believe, first and foremost, Toastmasters teaches us to be generous and a much better version of ourselves as human beings. And we are open to sharing, we are open to helping each other out. And this is what Toastmasters is about. So DTM Sarfaraz has been, I have had the pleasure of knowing him for a few months now, and he's become a member of Karachi Toastmasters Club. He's a three times DTM, and also, of course, he's a three times semi-finalist of World Championship of Public Speaking. And let me tell you one thing, given the level that that we see at World Championship of Public Speaking, making it to semi-finals thrice is no child's play. It requires commitment, dedication. Literally hundreds of times a speech has to be practiced before you get to that level. Hundreds. I'm not saying dozens. I'm not saying tens. It has to be hundreds. Listen to any world champion or semi-finalist, and you will learn that they wrote like 70 or 80 drafts of their speech and they practice it in hundreds of clubs around the world. And contrary to our instinct, perhaps, if we were to compete in a contest, we would keep our speech secret. We would avoid delivering it all around the world because we would think that people would listen to our speech and then they will prepare themselves accordingly. That's not how it works. You have to spread the love without fear, without any discrimination. The more you practice, the more you improve. And we've also hosted several aspiring contestants in our club, especially from India or from Middle East, and they have repeatedly joined our meetings because they wanted to actually practice their contest speeches. And if you recall, they always ask you for feedback. They give you a form and they give you free reign that, in the chat box, just give them a private message because they're hungry for feedback. So this is all what it's about. It's about preparing by practice and by presenting your ideas and concepts to all and sundry. And this is what we need to learn. So DTM Sarfraz is not only a great speaker, but he possesses something that we all need to learn, and that is good use of facial expressions and voice modulation when addressing an online medium. Because let's face it, online/hybrid is the future of Toastmasters. We can complain all we want that, in-person meetings are in-person meetings, there's nothing like in-person meetings. But remember this, were it not for this online format, we would not be witnessing DTM Sarfaraz himself, and we would not have Toastmasters from around Pakistan participating in this session. So please stop professing preference of one format over another. Both formats are equally valid. They have their strengths and weaknesses. For example, in an in-person meeting, you are in the same room with an audience and you have that sort of direct connection with them. But let me ask you, how many people are able to see your facial expressions? Only the people in the front row. So there are trade-offs everywhere. And that is what we need to learn. And that's what I believe sets DTM Sarfaraz apart, because exactly as I've seen native English speakers, he is as good or better at facial expressions than them. And that's really what helps uh, a speech to land and to make an impact. Whether you're standing or sitting, how far you are from the camera, or whether we can see your body or not, all these things are secondary. Once you're lost in the world created by the speaker, once the speaker has successfully transported you into the world that they have built for their speech, you forget about everything. And trust me, judges are humans too. And if you feel lost in a speech and you struggle to shake the impact of a speech even after it's over, trust me, that's what's happening with the judges too. And it may even sway their balloting. It may sway, it should not, but it may sway their scoring. They should remain objective, of course. But trust me on one more thing. There may be a speech that is perfect technically, and it ticks all the boxes on the ballot, and yet it is not making an impact. It is boring. Trust me, that speech will not win, even if it scores 100 on the ballot. The speech that entertains, makes an impact, and the speech that is memorable above all, even sometimes at the expense of some of the technical criteria in the ballot, that has a greater chance of winning because the judges are marking all the speeches and they are more likely, again, that's a human weakness. If the robots were doing the marking, maybe things would have been different. But as humans, and I've been a judge, so I know how that feels. The most memorable speech, the speech that entertains you the most, the speech that had the most surprises, maybe, and the speech that is more firmly etched in your mind after all the speeches are over, that speech is likely to score more. Uh, at least that's what I've seen in our part of the world. And let me tell you one more thing, that the nuances and the subtleties of judging here in Pakistan are still in development. And we in the subcontinent as judges, we fall victim to some of the biases. We sometimes get swayed by the entertainment value of a speech. So you have to take that into account. You cannot blame a mindset, you cannot blame the judges, you cannot blame where you're making a speech. Instead, it is you who have to make your speech perfectly acceptable to everyone everywhere. And that is an art that requires and empathy and hard work. And with that, I give the floor over now to DTM Sarfaraz Nazir. And thank you, sir, for joining us and sparing time for this meeting. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, DTM Talha, and fellow Toastmasters and fellow Pakistanis. Assalamu alaikum. I believe that it is a privilege to compete in a speech contest, especially the international speech contest, because it challenges you and helps you improve your speaking abilities beyond belief. I think it was 1999 World Championship of Public Speaking. When the results were announced, the person who came in second, he walked onto stage, took his trophy, and normally you would carry your trophy in your hand. He turned it upside down and by the side of him and walked off. The reason he did that was to show that he was upset because he was expecting to win. I believe that taking third place or second place is also an honor. In my case, when I first competed in the international speech contest, I was lucky enough to advance to the district. But there was a problem with the judges. Many judges were not used to my speaking skills, my speaking voice, my accent. My English background is Pakistani English. It got mixed with British English, and then that got mixed in with the American English. And the result is it all became a khichdi. And some of them were unable to understand what I was saying. And also, my first speech was 1,040 words delivered in about 7 minutes, 20 seconds. And that meant the rate of speaking was about 140 words per minute. And that's too much. So I was going too fast and people could not understand what I am saying. Sometimes they missed. So over the next few minutes, I'm going to go over what it takes to compete in international speech contests. The purpose of the session is not to make you a world champion of public speaking from a title point of view, but to make you a world champion from a speaking point of view. And towards the end of the session, we'll open the floor for questions and answers. And the title of the session is Speak, Conquer, Repeat. I would like to give credit to distinguished Toastmaster Talha. This is his creation, but I will take the credit for then using his title within my presentation. The objective of this is to help you familiarize with the judges' ballot, how to prepare the speech, how to set your stage, how to deliver the speech, tips on appearance before you go on camera, and why and how you should improve, and some Zoom tips. What I'll be covering will be the contest form, the judges' ballot, the speak, conquer, and repeat, and then open the session for questions and answers. The time of international speech contest is 5 to 7 minutes, which means you are qualified at 4 minutes, 30 seconds. But in my experience, no one has ever won the contest at 4 minutes and 31 seconds. You should speak at least 6 minutes, around 6.5 minutes. In 2007, when I won the district contest and advanced to the semifinals, my speech was timed at 7 minutes and 30 seconds. I was fortunate that I did not go over another second or I would have been disqualified. Now, why did I go 7 minutes, 30 seconds? One was within my speech, there were moments for audience to laugh. And at the district level, the room was full, over 200 Toastmasters and guests. So when the audience laughed, I had to pause, let them laugh. And that took a lot of time out of the speech. In 2007 semifinals, one time I said something in my speech that the audience burst out with laughter. One of the Toastmasters who was used to competing timed one of the laughters. I don't know, he did that. And he told me it was more than 10 seconds. Now, 10 seconds does not seem like a long time, but if people laugh 10 times and 10 seconds each time, that's 10 times 10, 100 seconds, almost 2 minutes of my 7-minute speech. So at each level of the competition, you have to allow. Now, in Zoom, fortunately, there's not a laughter, people are muted. But if you are speaking in front of the audience on a stage, you will have to allow some time for you to pause while the audience is laughing. This is just a rough draft. This is not a formula. This tells you if I have 7 minutes to speak, I'll probably go with my introduction 30 to 60 seconds. And then the body, 5.5 minutes. The body of the speech can be just one long story that has some message in it and then a call for action, or I can split it into 3 sections or have 3 distinct points that I'm making. Your first point should be your strongest, the third point, the second strongest, and the middle one can be same as the first or second or less than the first and third from an impact point of view. And then you summarize. Sometimes people finish and say, that's all I have to say. No, there should be a summary of what you have said. The basic formula you may have heard is tell the audience what you're going to tell them, then tell them what you told them you're going to tell them, and then tell them what you just told them. And then there should be a call of action. Like humorous speech at all tiers, there is no call for action. But in an international speech, there's a message, a theme, and you're asking the audience to do something based on what you have just told them. What is the one thing that you want the audience to remember when they leave the auditorium or the hall or the conference? This is the judges form. I'm not going to go over the form itself. This is available online, or you can ask the Vice President of Education to provide your copy. In case of international speech contest, you'll notice that the content is 50%. Half of the score is content, meaning the message. Most of the time when you hear people speaking in the international speech contest, even at world championship level, the material they're presenting or the idea they're presenting is not new. Even in TED speeches, the ideas are not new. What's new is the way the speaker presents that idea. For example, the 2021 International Speech Contest winner, Verity Price, the idea that she presented, you should write your own story and not let someone else write your story, is not new. But the manner, methodology, and the way she presented was new. And that's why she ended up winning, along with her speaking abilities, vocal variety, and gestures. Then the delivery is 30%, language is 20%. Not too many judges pay attention to the 20%. If you impress the judges from a content point of view and delivery, chances are they're going to score you high on language. In case of speakers who are non-English speaking persons, you have to pay attention to the pronunciation and the enunciation. In the 2000 competition, when I took second place, some of my words were not pronounced correctly. I went over too fast, like a roll. I just said roll. It should be roll or dream. You elongate some of the words. In case of the pronunciation, you can go to dictionary.com. You put in the word, and it will give you a little speaker icon or a microphone icon. You click on it, and you'll hear the pronunciation. So you can listen to the pronunciation to make sure. If I'm using a word in my speech, and when I listen to the pronunciation, if I have difficulty pronouncing that word, instead of continuing trying to struggle with it, I change the word. And to find out different words for a word that you use in speech, you can use Word, Microsoft Word, and select the word that you are looking for, alternate words for. And when you go click on thesaurus, it'll give you a list of words, and you can pick the one that you like that gives you the same meaning as the word that you were using. Now, no matter what your level is from a speaking point of view, how good you are, you're average speaker, just starting out, or great speaker, it does not matter. The person who is going to win, whether you take first place or not, is the one that puts his or her heart into it. I've seen people competing when you say, oh, what you're going to talk about, have you read it? No, I'll come up with something. No, you must have the passion for competing or passion for improving your speaking skills. If your heart is not in it, then I suggest that you not compete. One of my very good friends, a Toastmaster who had 5 DTMs and was very active in District 25 and District 50. He started several new clubs. Unfortunately, he has passed on. One time he was talking to me and he said, Sarfaraz, you can continue to compete as long as you have the fire. What he was trying to tell me, as long as I have the passion, if the fire is not there, then it's going to show when I'm speaking. In a club speech, that's fine. If I don't have too much heart in it, if I'm not feeling well, I can give a speech and chances are the evaluator is going to say, oh, that was a great speech. But in a competition, no, you must be passionate about what you're speaking about. You must be passionate about talking to the audience and hoping at least one person listens to you and they go and apply what you have just told them, and it might change their life forever. The message. In international speech, your message must be a universal message, something that resonates with everybody. And the example I give is this: in an international speech contest and area level, one of the club reps gave a speech on Rwanda, genocide in Rwanda. Now, that does not have a universal appeal. People might be aware of what's happening in Rwanda, but it's not something that's going to resonate with the entire population. So it has to be something about dreams, hopes, adversity, going from failure to success, how you had been very successful and for some reason you lost it all. And then what did you do to come back up? Those are things that people like to hear. The problems and issues that a person is facing. They want to find out a solution from you. In your speech, you have to make them think and feel. Sometimes people, when they're giving a speech, they ask a question. They don't want people to raise their hand, but they just want the audience to think about it. Or you sometimes make them feel. When you're presenting something with emotion, they're not reacting to your emotion, but you are generating an emotion within them. And that's what is touching their heart and head. Your speech must have a single theme or a single message. If you have multiple messages, the audience is going to get lost. And the example I give is the 2000 semifinals, or local semifinals. The person who won went on to represent the region in the World Championship. She went to an advanced club to practice a speech. The evaluator asked the audience, what was her message? Several Toastmasters told what they thought the message was. Everyone had a different message. That means she was not clear when she gave her speech. Either they misunderstood her, or her message was not clear, or she had too many messages within the speech. Your message should be just single theme. And the example here is from the 3 semifinals that I competed in. Those were my themes in my speeches. Then the 2001 championship, if you go to Toastmasters.org and click on under education, you'll find, or events, you'll find World Championship. There's the video of the first place winner, Verity Price, and you can listen to her speech and see how she presents it, what her message is, what props she uses, vocal variety, how she appears in front of the camera, how much she's visible in front of that camera. So her theme was pick up a pen and write your own story, because if you don't write your own story, someone else is going to write it for you. And the same thing you might have heard in time management. People say that you have to control your own time, control what you're going to do in your business or at work. If you don't do that, your manager or someone else is going to control your time. The second place winner, his theme was, as you travel through life, show your life, do something with your life. And the third place winner message was, you have the power to inspire others to find their greatness to become superstars. So when you are ready to prepare your speech, think of the message, what message you want the audience to walk away, and then build your speech around that message. This is simple. We all know that a speech should have 3 parts: introduction, body, conclusion. The introduction is like an appetizer. You're telling the audience what you're about to tell them. In your introduction, you can open with a personal story, a story from history, a statistic, a quotation, something that grabs the audience attention. The first 30 seconds of your speech are very, very important. You can gain the attention of the audience, or you can lose it. Once you lose the attention of the audience, they're gone. They'll be looking at their cell phones, thinking of something else, and sometimes someone will be looking to the side. That happens if you were in an in-person competition. If you're on Zoom, they'll be looking at doing something else. They may turn their video off and start doing something else that you don't even know whether they're paying attention to you or not. I prefer that within the first 15 seconds, I grab their attention, especially if I can use humor. And sometimes it works. Sometimes I had trouble, I could not fit in, so I'm not going to force humor within the presentation. But if you can say something funny, open with a sentence. The first time I gave my speech, even though I advanced to the district, my opening was a story about a principal whose mother said, get up, it's time to go to school. And he said, no, I'm not going to school. And he said, because the kids hate me, teachers hate me too. And mother said, oh, you have to go to school. He says, why should I go to school? Give me one reason. And she says, I'll give you 2 reasons. Number 1, you are 42 years old. And number 2, you are the principal of the school. That was a nice story. The audience laughed. The problem I had was, that's a very, very popular story. almost everyone in the audience had heard it. They laughed not because I told them, they laughed because they knew the story, but it had no impact on the audience because I was using someone else's story. Then I switched it to my own opening. Your own opening, a statement, sentence, or your personal story is the best way to start your speech. The body, it could be a one long story, 3 different sections or 3 different points, and then the conclusion. In evaluation, you may have seen when people evaluate someone's speech, they tell what they liked about it, how they can improve, and then they say, oh, that's all I can think about in the end. There has to be a conclusion or summary, whether you are giving an evaluation speech or international speech contest speech. And in case of international speech contest, call for action. You have to tell the audience, hey, I told you this, what do you should be doing based on what I've told you? Go out and conquer the world. I noticed that this is the best way to present. Now, the material I'm presenting, you don't have to follow it or copy it. You use what is more comfortable to you. But in my speech, Drive Your Dreams, in the 2000 semifinals, I had 3 points in my speech. And I used this formula point. What my point is, explained. I had 3 sentences for each point to explain what I mean by that point, then elaborate. In my case, I used 3 personal stories. Back early days when I had a similar speech, I had 2 personal stories, and one was a story that I heard from a motivational speaker. He's a very, very popular motivational speaker. So when I used his story, audience had heard about it, and some were offended that I was using someone else's story. Since then, I switched it, and I now believe that the best way I can present is by using story, because I have enough stories in my own life that I can use to make a point. So make a point, explain what you mean by that point, and then elaborate using a story, statistic, or some quotation that and reinforces your point. And then you restate your point, what you have just stated, and then you transition to your next point. This is a simple formula that works well for me. It might work for you. You can try it and then modify it as necessary. Where do you get stories? Absence. A lot of times people join Toastmasters, they can say something about themselves in an icebreaker speech, and then something happened to their life. They give a second speech. After that, well, I can't think of anything to talk about. That's not true. Even if you person has just lived 10, 15 years, 20 years, 25 years, it does not matter how old they are. There's something that has happened in their life that they can talk about it. Everyday problems. If you use a dishwasher, something goes wrong. If you use a microwave, it doesn't work, you can make a speech out of it. Find stories in your life. Something happened. Did you get sick? How sick were you? How did you get well? In school, were you the top student? Why? And what happened? Or did you flunk? And if you so, why? And what happened? How did you then pass? The stories are all around you. If you go to a busy place, a busy market, you can find a story. Go to the airport, you can find a story. Make a list of your stories. You can use Microsoft Excel as your database. Write down a few points, what the story is, and what different topics that story can be used. A childhood story about sickness, overcoming adversity, money issue, a job that you loved, a job that you hated, a boss that you loved, a boss that you hated. So there's so many things that you might have experienced that you can talk about. So if you have a list of stories, a portfolio stories, then when it's time to give a speech, you can look at your list and find the best 3 stories or the best 1 story that you want to use within your speech. I'm showing this picture to let you know that this is something that happened to me. I've experienced it. I can talk about it, but I've never used it as a story in my speech. In the 2001 district, when I was preparing my speech at the end, I used not as a story, but just 1 line item, just 1 line that said that I met US President George Bush. About 1 hour before the contest was about to begin, I was at the hotel. One of my friends, one I mentioned that who has passed on, he took me to one of the meeting rooms at the hotel and asked another female Toastmaster, one of his friends, she was a very active in Toastmaster at the time. He asked me to practice my speech. So I practiced my speech in front of those two Toastmasters. And after we finished, we discussed. And my friend told me that even though I'm using one sentence with the reference to President George Bush, some judges might take offense. Now, one is some might think that I'm trying to boast that I met the US president. The other reason might be that President Bush was a Republican. If the judge is a Democrat who hates Republicans or especially hates President George Bush, chances are that I am doomed. I'm not going to be winning that contest. So 1 hour, almost 1 hour before the contest, I took that sentence out and had to modify and then re-practice the speech in front of these two Toastmasters and go on stage after about an hour. But if I was giving a regular speech, not a competition speech, I could use this speech to tell why, how I met President George Bush, what was my feeling. Now, before I went on to shake hands with the president, the Secret Service was standing on both sides of him. We were told that no autographs, but I'm a Pakistani, I wasn't going to give up that chance. So I had bought a new baseball previous day that I had in my pocket. And as I was approaching the president, I took that out. I talked to him for a while. And he discussed with me the new baseball park in Arlington, Texas, near Dallas. And then I took my ball and asked him that I would like an autograph. And he said, sure. He took out his pen and signed it and handed me back. And when that happened, I knew in the security service, they're not going to run and pull me out since the president is taking his pen and signing it. So the purpose to show is anything could be minor or major that's happened in your life. You can use it in a story and make a speech about it. One thing I failed to mention is I had a 5 inch by 7 inch picture of this hanging in my office. And several people saw it. One of the directors, one time he saw it, he said, Sarfaraz, is that a cardboard picture? Now, there are certain places, exhibitions where you go, there's cardboards and you stand next to the cardboard and you get a picture taken. He assumed that this picture, that it was not real. And I took offense in the sense that he was thinking that I am not qualified enough to be a person that might meet a US president. So I removed it. So someday I might use it when I'm courageous enough to know that people are not going to think that I'm using it to boast. But the purpose to show is there's always something happened in your life. If you met some important person, like in table talks, people say, if you meet a living or dead person, famous person, who will that be and why? So same thing, if it's happened in your life, make a story. Or a person that not popular, you meet somebody on the street, of someone who's asking you for money. You can give a story about it, why he asked you for money, what happened and what you did or how you responded to him. Story building. In your speech, you want to use strong words. The way I prepare it, I don't start writing my speech. I start my speech in my head. I continuously think of words, sentences. I'm forming my speech. I keep practicing as I'm driving. And once I feel I have a good grasp of the speech, then I transfer to the paper, outline it, or, write a few words about it. And finally, before the competition, I type it so I can see exactly the number of words and I can rearrange. I don't want my point 1 to be 2 minutes and point 2 just to be 10 seconds. So I can then balance my speech. Based on my rate of speaking, I can see the number of words, divide that, and I know how many minutes. If I think the speech is going to be 7, 8 minutes, then I've got to remove some words. If I don't have enough words, I can extend it. Then I go through it. If I have a word that I'm repeating within my speech, that's going to look bad. So I take second and third occurrence and then highlight it, use a thesaurus, and find out an alternate word for it. Avoid passive language, use active voice. And this is just an example. The ball was thrown by the boy. She said, boy threw the ball. And keep it simple. The sentences should be short, If it's a long sentence, I'm going to run out of breath by the time I come to the end of the sentence, and my last word is going to fall off. Plus, the audience is going to be out of breath if I have a long sentence. So short sentences, then slight pause in between the sentence so the audience can take a breather, and then they can go on, listen to your next sentence. Towards the end of the presentation, I'm going to show you a video, not the entire speech, just one point, to show you some of the techniques that I'm mentioning, how I use them in my speech. Next is the setting. Now, on stage, it's different. If you are presenting in front of an audience or at Beach Luxury Hotel, for example, you have to be ready, meaning before you come on stage, be ready. You don't want to be sitting when your name is called and then you get up slowly and walk. You should be on the side of the platform or the stage. And when they call you up, you walk on. And as you're walking sideways. But you should be facing the audience, even though you're walking sideways, so that you're making eye contact and a slight smile. You don't be laughing, but a smile, so show that your confidence. Then when you come to the center of the stage, you pause, you keep your feet apart in line with your shoulders, right foot slightly or left foot slightly in front of the other foot. You do not immediately start talking. I've seen some moment they come off stage and the first word, Mr. Toastmaster, Madam Toastmaster. You want to pause, you look at the audience from left to right, from back to front, smile. You are creating a moment of silence. And when there's silence, people don't like silence. They want to see what's going on. If they're looking at their telephone or talking, they're going to stop to see what happened. And once you have their attention, that's when you open your speech. A word in passing. Some speakers at the end say thank you. Some Toastmasters say you should say thank you. Others say no. Now judges don't like it because it loses the impact of speech. You're supposed to finish it with a strong sentence, strong message at the end, and you walk off without saying thank you. Same thing, it's your preference. You want to open with by saying Mr. Contest Master, ladies and gentlemen, or you can start your speech first, second sentence, and then you say. Now, there's not a requirement in Toastmasters rule book that you must say Mr. or Madam Toastmaster or Mr. Contest, Madam Contest Master, but some judges feel that if you don't say it, they're going to take a few points. So it's better to go ahead and use it, whether you like it or not. In case of the camera, you have to set the camera ahead of time. Once your name is called, you don't want to be then setting up your camera while the audience is waiting for you to listen to your speech. You do this ahead of time. You should leave about 1 inch from the top. My head should not be cut off, and I should not be like this, see, where there's too much space between the top and my head. You want to use as much space as possible, but making sure that your face is not too close. Now, if it's a news broadcast, that's fine. But in a speech, that you want to make sure that they can see your hands when you're using hand gestures and movement. So, how far you should stand from the camera? So I've switched from camera 1 to camera 2. So this is you don't have to show yourself from head to toe, but at least, a portion of it. So this way, see, when I move my hands, then beforehand, you practice in front of the camera and see where your spacing is. You don't want to disappear, off or fall off. I saw one of the speakers a few weeks ago at Beach Luxury Hotel. The speaker walked back and forth, and they walked to the right. And when they did that, they were off camera for a few seconds, and then they would walk back. So you want to make sure you stay. So what you do is you walk left, right, and see what your maximum space is. You can either put a barrier on both sides so you don't then pass those barriers, or you can put a tape or some marker so you know what your limits are. Same thing, goes how far back you want to. So you can always, you want to leave some room so you can go forward a little bit to make your point, or you can go backwards a little bit based on what you're telling the audience in your story. The eye level. Sometimes in Zoom meetings, I've seen people are looking down. Some have the camera looking up. both looking up, looking down is not good. Your camera should be at eye level, and you should be looking at the camera lens. It's very difficult. We are used to looking at the audience and making eye contact with the audience. It's difficult when you're looking at an object. What you can do is you take a red dot and place it right under the camera lens, or a piece of paper and color red, something, or a picture of somebody, small enough that it can fit in, that you focus on there. So you're looking at, while I'm speaking, I'm not supposed to be looking at the screen or the frames on, because if I do that, I'm no longer making eye contact. We are used to looking at audience faces, their facial expression, seeing how they're reacting to speech. So we have that habit, then we're always looking at the monitor to see what people are doing. But in case of a Zoom meeting, I cannot do that, because then I'm losing my eye contact. This is challenging, and you have to work at it. You have to practice it to get better at using a camera. So eye level, you can place books underneath or stand, whatever, to do to adjust the camera. And as I was mentioning space, there's a Toastmaster and KDC. When that person appears on Zoom, for some reason, that person or a Toastmaster, they're always in one corner of the screen or the frame. The rest is all blank. So that's just the placement. The best is that you should be in the center middle of your frame. And the way to check that is, before you log into the actual meeting, you use Zoom and start a new meeting, just one person, yourself, and you look to see if you have the camera at the eye level, if you're in the middle of the speaking area or not, how close you are, how far you are. You can do that. And you also have the opportunity of recording yourself when you do a one-person meeting. Hit record, and Zoom, when you close out the meeting, Zoom will provide you with a video of it. You can watch that. Sometimes it's very painful to watch your own video to see how bad you were. But that's one way to improve yourself, is to watch it and then see what you can do to improve, what worked, what did not work. On Zoom, Zoom has some defaults where it says, adjust my appearance or improve my appearance. I prefer to uncheck all those defaults. I don't want Zoom to take control. I want to keep the control myself. In other words, if the sound, for example, if I let Zoom take control sound, sometimes the sound is going to go up, sometimes go low. So I don't want to give that control. I want to control it when I want to raise my voice and when I want to lower my voice. So you remove those appearances, and you can use filters. Now Zoom lets you put eyebrows and different things. And I tried to see what happens. You put eyebrows, it makes you look good, but sometimes when you move your face moves, the eyebrows don't move. That's going to look funny. So I personally believe that I'll keep control, meaning I'll remove all the defaults, making sure I don't check any default that's within the Zoom setting. Appearance, professionally well-dressed. You need to dress in a manner that people pay attention to your speech, not to how you have dressed. If people are noticing how I'm appearing, if I have a lot of jewelry, if I have a golden badge or something that stands out or flashes, especially on Zoom, people are going to notice that, not what I'm saying. So the way you dress is not as if somebody just woke up, got out of bed and appeared before the camera. So that's a common, but I've seen people in our club meetings, for example, some people look like, used to be where people dressed up. I was a member of an advanced club. It was a requirement. All speakers, major role holders, table talks, and evaluators, you had to have a blazer suit or a blazer and a tie. That was a requirement. And slowly we've gotten away. Now people just have T-shirts on. And now, because we are on Zoom, we don't even know if they're wearing pants or not. There's a commercial on television here that shows a person is on Zoom and he's talking to a managers at his place of work. And while he's talking, he coughs and jumps up and you can see he's in an underwear. So when I'm presenting, people can't see if I'm have my shoes on or not, but I dress up as if I'm standing on stage or platform in front of an audience. I am wearing shoes because I'm not used to standing barefoot, because I never step on a stage in front of an audience barefooted. So I don't want that feeling that I don't have shoes. So I dress up even though people cannot see me from head to toe. Jewelry is fine. Now, I have a ring on each hand. If I have a ring on each finger, that's going to attract attention. So jewelry is okay as long as it's not too much where it distracts from the speaker. Hair, from female point of view, some females, they leave their hair loose and they keep putting it behind their ears. And each time they shake their head, the hair come out, and then they keep doing that. If a speaker is doing this thing, that's what people are going to notice. So best thing, maybe pin it, clip it, whatever. Same thing goes, for example, a dupatta. If it keeps falling off, the speaker needs to, go ahead, pin it, clip it. So the purpose of the appearance is that you don't want the audience to pay attention to how you look, what you're wearing. They should be focusing on your words, your gestures, your movements, your facial expressions. Eye contact, I mentioned. Now, you are looking at the camera, but that does not mean you always have to look at camera. You cannot look left and right unless it's part of your speech. If I keep doing this thing, audience is going to assume that I have a piece of paper and I'm reading it if I'm going left. If I keep looking down, audience will think that I'm trying to think what I'm supposed to say next. So I should be looking at camera, but it's okay once in a while to look for just a split second, slightly below the camera, and then look back up. If you look away from the camera, it should be with a purpose. Just like in movement, when you walk back and forth, you have to move with a purpose. So same thing goes with, so if I'm saying, hey, I was looking up, I looked at the stars, that's fine. But the rest of the time, I need to focus back on the camera. Now, if you're presenting on Zoom, you have an advantage. In on-stage presentations, there's no restriction using notes, but no one has ever won a competition, especially at a higher level, using notes papers. Sometimes people take a piece of paper and they hold it in hand. They never use it. And that's a distraction. So if a person is not going to use a piece of paper, they should put it away. So on Zoom, if you're on Zoom, you can take this and not horizontal, but vertically, you can make an outline. Write an outline, opening what you're going to, few words, your point 1, point 2, point 3 story, something that makes you remember it, your conclusion, call for action. You take this index card and you place it right below, tape it or below the camera. The camera cannot see it, the audience cannot see it, you can see it. So when you're looking at the camera, you can still glance at it without the audience knowing it. You don't want to have a full. Now, some people use teleprompters. I have not used one. I'm not comfortable because the teleprompter, you have to set it the speed at which the lines, sentences, words move. But if I'm speaking slower than that rate I set it, I'm going to be off from what the teleprompter is telling me and where I'm in my speech. I'll talk about memorization later on, where sometimes people think, well, what happens if I forget? Body language, parallel gestures. Parallel gestures is when your left hand, right hand is doing exactly the same thing. My left hand, right hand are at the same level. That's a parallel gesture, which sometimes looks unnatural. So there should be slight difference. Left hand or right hand slightly higher than the other one. If you listen or watch the video from the winner of this year's championship, you'll notice our hands one time. They appear to be exact same location now, but there's just a slight difference. Because in my speech one time, I was talking about success and failure, and I said the difference between success and failure. When I did that, someone who happened to be a district officer later on told people, hey, I don't like Sarfaraz's way of speaking. He's his gestures are mechanical. And that's because I was using parallel exactly same and moving them like a robot moving it. The gesture should be natural, just the way you're speaking. For example, on the street, if you're walking in a shopping center and you come across your friend, and notice how you speak. You're not thinking of, how you're going to gesture. You're just standing there chit-chatting, having a good time, and your hands are moving. You're very animated when you're speaking to them. And that's the way you should appear in front of the camera also, without having to think, hey, I need a gesture. And there was one speaker, he advanced to the district level, and I guess he thought that, hey, you have to have gestures, otherwise judges will take some point. He would say a sentence, then the second sentence, and then he would raise his hand. Another one sentence, two sentences, then he read. So it was a very mechanical. So your gestures should be natural. Avoid parallel gestures. So I can raise left hand, right hand, both hands moving, but maintaining eye contact all the time. When I say eye contact, also on stage, sometimes people just look at the front of the room. If I do that, people in the back of the room are going to be offended. So you have to look at the back. Now, sometimes people are nervous and they speak very softly. If I do that, people in the back of the room won't be able to hear. Now, this is not online. This is where you're speaking in person. So best thing to do is when you open your speech is to talk to someone at the back of the room. If you are speaking in person, especially in a large gathering, you can have 3 friends, one in the back, 2 on the sides, one in the middle and one in the front. And that way you can make eye contact with everyone, but then during your speech, start looking at those 3 friends and they should be smiling and nodding to make you comfortable. And then once you're comfortable, then you can start looking at everyone else. And that's one way to overcome nervousness. Vocal variety, monotone, we already know monotone is not desirable. So based on what you are saying in your speech, you raise your voice. So if I'm saying, giving a dialogue, presenting a dialogue, then the person is angry, I have to show the anger on my facial expressions, but also in my voice. If I just say, oh, he was very angry, that does not make sense. So I have to say, yes, he was angry. When you make important gestures or say important words, you must pause right after them. Let the audience take it in before you move on. If I don't pause, then the audience is going to miss that opportunity. Same thing happens if I'm saying something humorous. Before the punch word or the punch line or the punch phrase, I have to pause. Let the audience anticipate. What is he going to say? Then say it. Then pause, let the audience, let it sink in. And then you go on to your next sentence. These are first place winners from this year's championship and the second place winner. Now, on the top, the head is cut off. So her head was not cut off on screen. It's just the picture, the way I took her photo with the iPhone, I cut her head off. But so there was a slight gap. But notice, she's not appearing full length, but she is not too close to the camera either. And both of them, you can see part of them. And that was, so when they move their hand gestures, you can see their hand movements. So that's an ideal position to stand in front of the camera. Background, your background should be simple. Personally, I tried different backgrounds. I had a plain background. Then I noticed some of Toastmasters had their plaques and stuff, so I put on a lot of stuff. Then I noticed that if I have too many items on behind me, people are going to pay attention to what's on the wall, not what I'm saying. So I removed it. Best thing from a background point of view is plain background. Most of the speakers in the championship had plain background. Now the speaker here, the second speaker, this person did not place, they put a screen behind them, but for some reason it shows different colors and the lighting is very poor because you can hardly see their face. So you make sure by using this meeting, single person meeting, to see how you appear, if you record it, you can see if your facial expressions can be seen, if your face is clear, that there's not dark patches, and so on. distinguished Toastmaster Talal mentioned about practicing. You practice, practice, practice. So I practice a lot when I'm driving because I'm a prisoner of myself when I'm inside the car. So if I'm going from place 1 to place 2, point 1 to point 2, I have free time. So I can practice same words. When I drove from Dallas, Texas to Galveston, Texas for the 2000 semifinals, I was by myself. For almost 30 minutes, I practiced just how to say, Madam Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters. I wanted to make sure it says, I say it right. And then my introduction, the first few sentence speech. For 30 minutes, I was just practicing that. So when you're driving, you can keep practicing few words, something, how you're going to say it, and what gestures, what your hands will be doing when you say those words. The more you practice, the better you'll get it. So one thing is recording. I used to not like recording myself. I hated watching myself on tape, but that's a good way to record yourself speaking, watch it, and then modify your speaking, either the content or your delivery or your expressions, your gestures, if something does not appear or seem natural. Get feedback, practicing. Each time I appeared before the semifinal, I went to different clubs, breakfast clubs early in the morning, lunchtime clubs, evening clubs, weekday clubs, weekend clubs to practice, and got feedback from them. Now, when I get feedback, I don't apply everything that people said, because there were people giving me ideas that they had never, ever been outside their club. They had not seen an area club or a division club or a district. And they were trying to tell what it takes to win a championship. Their feedback was from their limited view of what a speech is in a club. So you gather the feedback, then you decide what's the best feedback that will help you improve your speech. If it's something that you think is going to bring your speech down, you ignore it. There's no requirement that if I get feedback, I have to use it. It's just like an evaluation. Speech evaluator says something. If I may agree with them, I might apply it next time. If I disagree and I don't think so, that's right, I'll ignore it. And repeat, meaning you keep on giving speeches, modifying your speech. Repeat means not giving the same speech over and over. I saw a person win the area contest, then they went on to division, their speech was exactly the same. At each level, the speech should change. Now, that doesn't mean you have to have a new speech. It's the same speech, but it should be an improvement. There should be more gestures, better gestures. Either words have changed, you have modified something. So the person who heard you speak at the area level, they should be able to tell that there's something different about your speech at the division level. And same thing should happen from the division to district. If a person is listening to you at the district, they should say, oh, yes, he or she modified it, improved it. Hey, afterwards, they should come to you and say, hey, I like the changes that you made. That's what the purpose of the practice is. You practice, practice, and you repeat, but you must change it for the better. Adjust timing. If your speech is going too long, you can take some words out to reduce the content and reduce the time. If you are too short, if I think it's going to be 7 minutes, then it ends up in 6 minutes, then I need to add some more content. So you can adjust based on your practice and the feedback. So again, practice, practice, practice. That's the only way to get better and to improve and to ensure that you might hear your name when the third place, second place, and first place winner are announced. Equipment. Many Toastmasters use their built-in laptop camera, that's fine. But for good Zoom presentation, a webcam is better. Personally, I'm using Logitech webcam. That's a C920. C920S. S has a little cover on top, so I can close the cover so to give it privacy. Then when I'm speaking, I have to adjust the camera if I want to show rest of my body. So I've added a second external webcam camera that I can switch from one camera to the other cameras. So this way you can see more from, and I can go back to camera one. And I can use the keyboard to switch from one camera to the other, or I can use my mouse. The problem I was having was, see, the mouse sometimes, during my presentation, I can see, what happened on mouse. I'm spending a few seconds trying to find, hey, where did my mouse disappear? And by the time I click it and all that, there's a major pause. So I'm now using a Zoom pad. Just a second. I turned off my file that I was sharing. So that's a Zoom pad. And that allows me to quickly, it just has one button. I can quickly switch from one camera to the other camera. It still takes a few seconds. There's a pause between the two, but it allows me to, it has the mute button. Audio, I can turn it on because my mouse would sometimes not work right away. And I had to struggle with it. So this, I keep it in front of me and I can turn the video on off. Same thing, the on off, and then switch the camera. So if I switch the camera, then I've got to make sure I look at the other camera, not the camera number one. So there's different gadgets now that are available in the market. Like a Stream Deck is another one that people use them and they program them. The monitor, I use two monitors. I've got a Samsung 32 monitor that has all the frames of everyone that's in attendance. And then the person or speaker who's speaking, they show up on my laptop. I tried a third monitor, Hewlett-Packard monitor, third. But sometimes if you have too many gadgets hooked up, Zoom doesn't like it and it used to cut off my video something. So I'm using right now just a laptop monitor and the Samsung monitor. Lighting, I showed you the picture of the speaker from the World Championship. The face is dark. You have to make sure that the light is not straight in front, otherwise it's going to whitewash the face. Difficult to tell. If there's no lighting around, then it's going to be so dark that people can see your facial expressions. So on both sides, you can use these cube lights, LED lights, natural light if you're near a window, making sure that sunlight is coming through. If you have blinds, you have to make sure the blinds are open, because if the blinds are not fully open, then there's going to be lines of light and darkness. So lighting is also something that you have to practice working with it back and forth to see what works. Placement is not right in front, but on the sides, 45-degree angles on the left and right side. And again, the only way to tell that is by recording yourself and looking at it. Are you visible? And then also you can listen and say, are you audible? So that you don't have to ask the audience, am I visible or am I audible? You have practiced enough that you know whether you're visible and whether you're audible or not. Headsets. In regular meetings, I use headsets. That way I'm listening to what people are saying. If I'm speaking, I don't need the headset because no one is talking while I'm listening. So I don't need the headsets. And even in the World Championship, I did not see anyone using headsets during a presentation. Now, what I don't know is what Toastmasters International told them what they can do or cannot do. But best is not to use headsets in a competition speech. In a club meeting is fine. So I'm going to open the floor for questions. And before I answer the question, I want to let you know best of luck. Even if you don't place, you are a winner. Now, beforehand, I've heard people, oh, it doesn't matter if I win or not. No, before you compete, you must have the desire to win. Now, if you walk off without winning, that's fine. Then you're a winner because you improved your presentation skills. The purpose is not to take first place all the time. The purpose is to improve, continue to improve. The person who is declared world champion of public speaking each year does not mean they're the best speaker in the world. It simply means that at that moment, in that competition, in that contest, they were the best according to the judges. And judges are also human. Sometimes people are amazed and they walk off and say, I can't understand what happened. Why did he win and so didn't win? Second place winner should have won. And there's several reasons, because on the judges form, judge has to place first, second, and third place. First place gets 3 points, second place gets 2 points, third place gets 1 point. There are some judges, for some reason, they dislike one word, for example, they leave the contestant off their ballot. And if the judge leaves you off, that means you got 0 point from that judge. And it can make a difference if the competition is very close, very tight. The first place winner, if he or she was left off, they might end up getting second. A second place winner, people that didn't think it should be the first place winner, ends up winning. So different things can happen when you're competing. So you should leave that up to the judges and up to God, whether you place or not. No matter what happens, if you think you should have won and you come at second, accept second place with grace. I've seen people that get angry. I had a friend in District 50th District, he did not place and he left immediately. Later on, when he was at the semi-finals and I took second place and he saw me, people came on, congratulations, something. He sent me an email saying that, Sarfaraz, you'll notice that I left immediately at the district because I was angry that I did not place and I saw how you reacted. So you have to react. That second place is not the worst thing that can happen to you in your life. Be grateful. And I didn't mention that before you go on to speak, I was talking about making eye contact also. Also say a little prayer. It's nice, sometimes we are so involved in our busy lives that we forget there is a God. At least before competing or before starting your speech, you can think about the Creator. Before you close, I've noticed that speakers doing keynote speeches or training sessions, they present their speech and then they have question and answer. And after the last question, you just say, oh, that's all the time we have. Personally, I'd like to see the speaker give his or her speech, have question and answer, then take back the control of the meeting and finish it. So in this case, I'm going to show just the 1 point from my speech from the 2000 semifinals, which is, I think, about 2 minutes to end it instead of saying that, hey, thank you for attending and going. So that's how I'm going to end it. And the reason for showing is just one story. There's not a requirement to have stories in your speech, but if I don't have stories in my speech, then it looks like a research paper, high school or college research paper where you quote other people and the other people's research. So stories make an impact, plus it makes it more believable. And a lot of times we think, oh, well, there's nothing really important. A story can be something that doesn't mean anything, but you make it meaningful by using in your speech. For example, when I was 2 years old, I was bitten by a poisonous snake, but I survived because I'm still here. So I've never used that speech. Then when I was in the first class, I just started elementary school, I ended up in the hospital with typhoid. Then I mentioned to you about what happened at the airport. I can take these 3 different stories, put them together in one speech where I talk about how I survived some of the incidents in my life. So you just take something that doesn't seem significant, you make it significant by using gestures, moments, dialogues. So it's nice if your story doesn't have to have 3 stories, but there should be balance if you have 3 points. Or it could be just one long. So one of my semi-final speech was I just talked about the water journey and then my life journey in parallel to it. It just started from the stop and went all the way into just one long story. But within that story, there were 3 different settings, 3 different places that it took place. So this is from Drive Your Dreams. The introduction is missing. There's no introduction. it just goes straight to point one and ends with that point one. And after that, I will be ending it. Thank you for joining us. I appreciate it. It was my honor to talk to you this evening at your time or my morning, my time. See if I can.
Speaker number 3, Sarfaraz Nazir, drive your dreams, Sarfaraz Nazir.
Success begins with a dream. Dreams represent your roadmap to success. Believe that if you cherish a beautiful dream, one day you will realize it. A young, tenacious boy was growing up in Pakistan. When he was in the middle school, his father visited the United States of America. Upon his return, he brought home a catalog from Sears. In the afternoons, this boy would flip the pages of the catalog, look at the pictures, and dream that someday he will go to America and buy some of those shirts and ties. He walked to the American embassy to ask, how do I get to Sears? Day after day, he flipped the pages of the catalog and dreamed and dreamed and dreamed until he arrived at Oklahoma State University. One day, he went to Sears and bought some John Henry shirts and ties. That young boy from 14,000 miles away, who flipped the pages of the catalog and dreamed, stands before you to tell you that sometimes dreams do come true. I just wish my father had brought home a catalog from Neiman Marcus.
Wow. Nothing left to say after that, except savor this moment. And everyone, thank you so much. Good night and good luck with your contest. And remember, as DTM Sarfaraz said, you should deliver the speech of your life. It doesn't really matter where you stand on the podium. So thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much, DTM Sarfaraz, and see you all again. Thank you so much.